We're going to cross live to our correspondent, Luke Shrago, who joins us now from Kyiv. Luke, recriminations then building on the Russian side?
Very much. It seems extremely likely that, at least with not just in Russia at large, but with the Russian command, a deep sense of shock may well have set in following this New Year's Day strike. Russia saying that 63 of its soldiers had died. Now, that's a huge admission for the Russians, because you have to remember that they have always downplayed their losses throughout the course of the war. You remember with the cruiser Moscow that was sunk earlier on during the conflict, they're still only saying that only 20 people lost their lives in the sinking of that vessel. Now, Ukraine has said that that there are 400 Russian soldiers who have died, pointing to a substantial loss, meaning that whatever Russia has said, the true total is likely far, far higher. Now, we've seen this is likely going to put an even deeper sense of pressure on President Vladimir Putin. He's already taken criticism from various areas of Russian society, in particular nationalist bloggers and the far right wing, which are saying that Russia is not prosecuting this war well enough. It's not going far enough. So it's not really a matter of walking a balance. It's a matter of finding a response to show that it's still able to prosecute this war in a way that meets its objectives and shows that it's not faltering. We've seen criticisms coming in for the troops it's mobilised, that they're not being equipped or even trained properly. And we've definitely seen this lack of operational security around Russian soldiers. They're using ordinary mobile phones rather than encrypted communications. All of those are being intercepted by the Ukrainians. We've seen videos repeatedly put out on social media, the conversations between Russians and their families, and it seems likely that this is exactly what's happened with this HIMARS strike in Makiivka. Russian media reporting that it was the lack of operational security that allowed the Ukrainians to track these newly arrived recruits and mobilized soldiers, and allowing them to strike at what was likely an ammunition dump, at least in very close proximity to a temporary barracks.
Luke, as you said, they were into a new year. The war is now into its 11th month, would you believe? Are tactics changing at all, do you think?
Very much a change in tactics at the operational level. We've seen that Russia needs to show its war is still a success, and we've seen that even after the retreats from Kherson, from Kyiv earlier in the summer, that it still needs to show that it can prosecute its war. So if we're not looking at, no longer looking at Russian objectives in terms of outright conquest of Ukraine, those objectives have become more limited in scopes, with seeking for Ukraine to recognise these territories it's annexed as a prerequisite to negotiations, for example. And we've seen, rather than outright attacks, this move after those retreats now to long-range bombardments from round about October, really striking at Ukraine's energy sector. Now we see that Ukraine has got enough experience. It's got Western defence systems continually coming in. It's looking at receiving more in the weeks and months ahead. And even when you come to the Russian side of things, their issues now are with supplies and stocks of missiles. We've seen them over the last week or two moving increasingly towards these Iranian-made drones rather than using cruise missiles. There have been deep questions over just how many of those cruise missiles it has left. So the move towards drones may be a means to try and reserve whatever it has. However, again, Ukraine with its experience is repeatedly being able to take them out of the sky. It's looking at far easier targets to take down. They travel more slowly, in straight lines and at lower altitudes, and the more that Ukraine gets in terms of practice, the better it can bring them down, particularly looking now towards drone warfare. This is what Ukraine needs now. If it was anti-tank weaponry that really saved Ukraine at the beginning of the war, now it's going to be air defense measures and indeed more drones that it can take the fight back to the Russians.
Luke, thanks so much. Luke Shrago, our correspondent, talking to us live there from Kyiv.